Good morning, and thank you very much for hosting us, and good morning to the viewers.
So, when we talk about international reputation, I mean, now we see that it is shaped a lot by social media, geopolitical rivalries, and disinformation. And this is a classic case with South Africa with the anti migrant protests, and in some cases, sadly, physical attacks, killings in some cases. How does Brand South Africa walk back that reality? Because there obviously is a narrative that we want to shape, but some things are unfortunately out there, and some grossly, exaggerated just in terms of the disinformation campaign we're seeing.
Absolutely. I mean, our priority has been to ensure that we showcase exactly what the president has outlined in terms of dealing with the migration issue. And I need to also indicate upfront that the migration issue is not unique to South Africa. It's unique to many countries. And of course, each country has got a way of responding. What is really unfortunate about what is currently happening in South Africa, in again, restricted and small communities, uh, opportunist and some structures purporting to be driving this. But of course, one is clear that that's normally driven from a certain agenda. So what's very important for us is really to drive the message clearly that South Africa, it's not a South African culture to be to be un-African because we have population size of about 65 million people, and there is no way that every single South African is like this. So from a reputation management perspective and from a brand South Africa perspective, that is the message that we are driving. On the disinformation, of course, the disinformation, malinformation, and of course the fake news that has been driven across several platforms, social media platforms. We are approaching it in two ways. One is, of course, to approach the social media owners to bring down the fake news with factual information, and then the second part is to counter that with clear factual information and us communicating exactly what is happening on the ground, the government's efforts to deal with the migration issues. And the president was quite clear. Of course, you can't allow a situation of lawlessness to take course. The police, border management authority, and all authorities of the state that are responsible for law enforcement have also been triggered to ensure that we manage the situation correctly. Several countries have come on board to ensure that they work closely with the South African government because they understand that it is not just a South African issue. It also affects them. Hence, they've come forward to ensure that they work closely with the South African government to deal with their nationals and to also ensure that those that are in South Africa illegally are able either to be legalized or they are actually repatriated.
And I mean, it's a bit of a quagmire, isn't it? Because on the one hand, it's about communications because we've heard that perception drives the economics, but on the other hand, it's the fact that hard indicators speak better for a situation. But as you say, it's a problem that is faced globally. But why do you think that South Africa, in this particular instance, has come out looking so bad that Brand South Africa seems to be in danger of all the hard work that it's built over the years and decades?
The word in danger is a little bit overstated. Of course, there are issues related to migration issues. So South Africa's foreign policy has always been rooted on values of African unity, peace, and development of multilateral cooperation. And that is really the principle from a pan-African perspective that our government has been dealing with this. But from a brand South Africa perspective, we of course focus on translating our country's international reputation by showcasing it as a champion for cooperation and a trusted global partner. We focus purely on our commitment to peacekeeping efforts. We've actually been driving as a country conflict mediation, post-conflict reconstruction, the work that we have done to demonstrate what South Africa continues to do within the African continent, and using our voice also through global platforms which we belong to, such as the BRICS, the AU itself, the UN, and other structures to drive that message across. You would have seen in the last few weeks, of course, our president has been into Botswana and engagements in Mozambique. The Kenyan president has been here. The SECU conference is taking place now in Cape Town. So all these are continuous efforts that South Africa drives to showcase the fact that this is not a government-led initiative. It is really driven in again selected and small communities, which unfortunately gets amplified when it gets onto the social media because people share, reshare, and it makes it as if wherever you go in South Africa, this is the case. I got a phone call from a friend of mine who was visiting from Kenya, and they were basically indicating that there is no deterrent from them coming into South Africa because they know what South Africa is about, and they have enough knowledge about South Africans to know that this is not how we are as a nation.
I understand the need to be positive and to persevere, particularly as Brand SA, but it is unfortunately because the converse is also true that people who would have liked to visit South Africa in the past have actually withdrawn those plans. There's actually been data that is shared by some tourism companies. And I'm just getting to the point that, if trust is economic currency, is it really overstated to say in danger, because we're speaking about a threat that does exist, and it's about how we manage that threat, as you say, and where do you think then we are most vulnerable?
Yeah, so the thing about data is the importance of ensuring that it's verifiable and it is also trusted. Lots of people have been sharing lots of information again as part of the disinformation campaign, also to try and paint a certain picture. I'm not dismissing the fact that certain, of course, individuals or tour groups have actually perhaps re-looked at other destinations. But what I'm saying is we need to tread carefully when we look at information that is shared. We've got to make sure that it is verifiable and it's trustable. So in terms of what we are doing, we continue our efforts within the continent. I mean, we continue to position South Africa as a destination of choice for trade and for investments. We continue the initiatives of bilateral engagements between ourselves and specific markets to ensure that we open trade and investment opportunities, not only for South African companies, but also for African companies wanting to come into South Africa. We continue our efforts of leveraging on the AfCFTA to ensure that we increase trade within the African continent. So we haven't removed our foot off the accelerator in that regard. What we have obviously amplified even more now our efforts in ensuring that we demonstrate our ability to actually continue being a partner within the African continent in terms of our issues within the African continent.
And as you say, there is a need to ensure that the data that is out there is verifiable. And who we're speaking to about this, who verified this, was Nethemba Ndaba, who's a chief marketing officer of the South African tourism. But most importantly, it's about reinforcing a coherent national brand in the midst of geopolitical fracture. What are some of the tools that we perhaps haven't used are at our disposal to strengthen brand South Africa, do you think?
Yeah. So from a brand South Africa perspective, we're focusing on investment-led growth as a central strength in terms of regional integration and our positioning of South Africa within the continent. We're also using a lot of our companies who have invested in several sectors within the African continent, both in the banking, telecommunication, retail, mining, as well as other sectors, to assist in ensuring that we continue to amplify our voice within the continent. Our engagements through AU structures has also continued from a Brand South Africa perspective. We've got several platforms that we have planned. Others we've already executed from the beginning of the year until now within the continent to ensure that we are visible within the African continent. But most importantly is to drive clear messaging around what is really happening on the ground in South Africa and the truth about what is happening within the country.
Neville, thank you so much for speaking to us. Really, really appreciate it. And I know it's a tough job that you do. And what's even going to test our mettle is that June 30 deadline. So wishing you and the colleagues all the best. Chief Executive Officer of Brand South Africa, Neville Matjie, brings the time to exactly 7 o'clock. Time now for the news with Shwalani Tulo-Mwebe. This is Rise and Shine, the second hour.
SABC